My name is Madeline, and I'm 34 years old. Tonight was supposed to be perfect. I stood in the mirror adjusting my red dress, the one I'd bought specially for our 10th anniversary celebration. 80 guests were waiting at the restaurant, family and friends from both sides. Ryan, my husband, stood up holding the microphone like he was about to say something romantic, but his eyes were cold, different, calculating. Something was terribly wrong. Before I continue this story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Please hit that like button and subscribe if you want to hear how this unfolds. 10 years. That's how long I'd been married to Ryan Matthews, one of Boston's most successful corporate lawyers. We met at Harvard Law School during our second year. I was top of my class, had just received a prestigious scholarship for my thesis on constitutional law. Ryan was charming, ambitious, struggling with his grades, but determined to succeed. I fell for his determination, his dreams, his promises of building an empire together. After graduation, I had options. 3 major firms wanted me. Yale offered me a full scholarship for my PhD in international law, worth $200,000. But Ryan had a different vision. He wanted to start his own practice, said he needed me by his side. "We'll be partners in everything," he promised. "Your sacrifice won't be forgotten." So I turned down Yale. I turned down the job offers. I became the invisible force behind Ryan Matthews Law Associates. For 5 years, I worked without a salary. Every brief he filed, I reviewed. Every argument he made in court, I refined the night before. His famous closing statement that won the Morrison case. The one that launched his career, I wrote every word while he slept off another networking event hangover. When his mother Margaret was diagnosed with stage 3 breast cancer, I moved her into our home. For 18 months, I drove her to chemotherapy every Tuesday and Thursday. I held her hair back when she was sick. I slept on the hospital chair during her surgeries while Ryan was too busy with an important case. She recovered, thank God, but Ryan never acknowledged those sleepless nights, the career opportunities I missed while caring for his mother. Ryan didn't want children. "Not yet," he'd say. "Let's establish ourselves first." I agreed, took birth control, religiously ignored my body's monthly reminders that time was passing. My younger sister Jennifer had 3 kids by then. At family gatherings, I'd hold my nephews and swallow the ache, telling myself our time would come. The firm grew. Ryan brought in powerful clients, expanded from a small office to an entire floor in downtown Boston's financial district. He made me office manager, a title that meant I handled everything from HR to accounting to client relations, still without official partnership despite his promises. I watched him collect awards, give speeches about his success, never mentioning the woman who built the foundation he stood on. 6 months ago, something shifted. Ryan started coming home after midnight, claiming client dinners that I knew weren't on his calendar because I managed it. His phone grew a password where none existed before. When I'd enter his office, he'd minimize windows on his computer, quickly flash that smile that once melted me, but now seemed practiced. "You're being paranoid," he'd say when I asked about the late nights. "This is what success looks like. I thought you understood that." I pushed down my instincts. 20 years together, 10 years of marriage, surely that meant something. I focused on planning our anniversary party instead. I wanted to remind us both of what we'd built together. I spent 3 months organizing every detail. The Peninsula Hotel's private dining room, the one where he'd proposed. His favorite band flying in from New York. A video montage of our decade together that took me weeks to edit, filled with pictures from law school, our wedding, our travels, his mother's recovery celebration, where she called me her guardian angel. I invited everyone who mattered to him. His 3 brothers flying in from different states. His law school professors. The senior partners from firms he wanted to impress. My family, of course, though I knew he'd barely acknowledge them. The total cost was $20,000, my entire savings from the small freelance legal consulting I did on the side, the work Ryan didn't know about because he never asked what I did with my days anymore. That morning, our anniversary morning, I woke early to make his favorite breakfast. Eggs Benedict, with homemade hollandaise, fresh squeezed orange juice. Colombian coffee from the special beans his client sent. Ryan came downstairs in his gym clothes, barely glancing at the spread. "We need to talk tonight," he said, grabbing just the coffee. "After the dinner." "Is everything okay?" I asked, something cold settling in my stomach. "Just something I need to say. In front of everyone. It's time." The way he said it, the slight smile playing at his lips, I convinced myself maybe he was finally going to announce making me full partner. Maybe he'd prepared some grand romantic gesture. After all, 10 years was a milestone. Even Ryan, who'd grown distant, wouldn't let it pass without acknowledgement. I spent the morning at the office preparing for a meeting with the Henderson Group, our biggest client. That's when I saw it. An email on Ryan's computer left open when he'd stepped out. From Sophia Chen, the new paralegal we'd hired 3 months ago. 26 years old, fresh from law school, eager and beautiful in that way that made other women instinctively wary. "Can't wait for tonight, baby. After you tell her we can finally stop hiding. Your mother already knows and approves. S." My hands shook. I read it 3 times, each word burning deeper. Your mother already knows. Margaret, whose life I'd saved, who still called me every Sunday, knew. When Ryan returned, I was sitting at my desk, the picture of calm professionalism I'd perfected over a decade. "You left your email open," I said quietly. His face went through several expressions before settling on indignation. "You read my private correspondence. It was on the screen. Sophia seems excited about tonight." "She's excited about the announcement, yes. Everyone is. Don't make this something it's not, Madeline. Your jealousy is really becoming unattractive." Jealousy. After everything I'd sacrificed, everything I'd built for him, my legitimate concerns were reduced to jealousy. I wanted to scream, to throw something, to demand answers. Instead, I nodded, returned to my work, and told myself I was overreacting. This was Ryan. My Ryan. We had 10 years of history. Sophia was just an employee with a crush. By 3 o'clock, my sister Jennifer called. Her voice was strange, careful in the way people are when delivering bad news. "Maddie, I'm at Cafe Luna. Ryan's here." "He has a client lunch today," I said automatically. "He's with that young woman from your office. The pretty one. Maddie, she's wearing a necklace. A Cartier necklace. The same one you showed me last month, the one you wanted for your anniversary." The room spun. I'd spent an hour at Cartier falling in love with a simple diamond pendant, deciding it was too expensive, that I'd rather spend the money on Ryan's party. "Maybe it's not the same one," I whispered. "They're holding hands. She's crying and he's wiping her tears. Maddie, I'm so sorry." I hung up. Sat in my office staring at the wall covered in Ryan's achievements. His law degree. His first $1 million settlement. The photo from the Bar Association gala where he won Lawyer of the Year. In every picture I stood beside him, slightly behind, always in his shadow. At 4:30 I left early, something I never did. I needed to go home to shower, to transform into the perfect wife for the perfect anniversary party I'd planned. As I drove, I called Lisa, my best friend since college. "Tonight's the night, right?" she said immediately. "The big anniversary bash. Lisa, have you heard anything about Ryan?" The pause told me everything. "Maddie, there have been rumors. At the gym at the country club. People have seen them together. I didn't want to say anything without proof. I thought maybe if you two could just get through tonight, recommit to each other." "You knew." The betrayal cut deep. "How long?" 2 months. Maybe 3. But Maddie, rumors aren't facts. You know how people gossip." I hung up on her too. Drove home in silence, my perfect life unraveling mile by mile. At home, I stood in the shower until the water ran cold, then mechanically applied makeup, styled my hair in the soft waves Ryan once said he loved. The red dress slipped on like armor. I looked in the mirror and didn't recognize the woman staring back. When had I become this hollow version of myself? At 6, I arrived at the Peninsula Hotel. The private dining room looked exactly as I'd imagined. Soft lighting, white roses everywhere because they were Ryan's mother's favorite, though she'd never told me thank you for remembering. The band was setting up. The video montage played on loop on screens around the room, our younger selves smiling back, mocking me with their naive happiness. My parents arrived first. My father, retired military, still ramrod straight at 70, kissed my cheek. "You look beautiful, sweetheart. Where's Ryan?" "On his way." I lied smoothly. My mother studied my face with that intuition mothers have. She started to speak, then stopped, just squeezed my hand. Ryan's family arrived in a cluster. His brothers, loud and already slightly drunk, clapping me on the back, making jokes about the old ball and chain. His father, a quiet man who'd always been kind to me, smiled warmly. But Margaret, his mother, her expression was different. Cold. Knowing. She air-kissed my cheek and whispered, "I hope you're prepared for tonight, dear." The words chilled me, but before I could respond, more guests arrived. Partners from Ryan's firm. Clients. Friends from law school. The room filled with chatter, laughter, the clink of champagne glasses. Everyone kept asking where Ryan was. "You know him?" I said with a bright smile that hurt my face. "Always making an entrance." By 7:30, with all 80 guests present, my anxiety was suffocating. Lisa pulled me aside near the bar. "Maddie, there's something you should know. Sophia just walked in. She's here. In a cocktail dress that costs more than most people's rent. Why would Ryan invite her to your anniversary party?" I turned, and there she was. Sophia Chen in a black dress that hugged every curve, standing in the corner typing on her phone. She looked up, caught my eye, and smiled. Not a friendly smile, a victorious one. At exactly 8 o'clock, Ryan walked in. He looked handsome, I had to admit. The same confident stride that caught my attention 12 years ago. The same perfect smile. He worked the room, shaking hands, accepting congratulations, making his way to the microphone at the front. He didn't look at me once. "If everyone could take their seats," he said, his lawyer voice commanding attention. People settled into their chairs. I sat at the head table, my parents on one side, his parents on the other. The empty chair beside me, where Ryan should be sitting, seemed to grow larger, more noticeable. Ryan stood at the microphone, champagne glass in hand. The room fell silent. "Thank you all for coming tonight. 10 years is a significant milestone. A decade of marriage. A decade of building a life with someone." He paused, finally looking at me. His eyes were cold, calculating the eyes of a lawyer about to destroy a witness. "Madeline has been my wife for 10 years. Something in his tone made everyone shift uncomfortably. This wasn't starting like a romantic anniversary speech. Ryan continued, his voice carrying that courtroom authority that made juries trust him, even when he was lying. 10 years is a long time to realize you've made a mistake. A long time to pretend. A long time to stay with someone out of obligation rather than love. The room went completely still. Someone dropped a fork. It clattered against a plate like a gunshot. My mother reached for my hand under the table, but I couldn't feel her touch. I couldn't feel anything except the rapid hammering of my heart. "I look at my wife," Ryan said, gesturing toward me with his champagne glass, "and I see someone I no longer recognize, or perhaps someone I never truly knew. Madeline was supposed to be my partner. Instead, she became my burden." Gasps rippled through the room. My father started to stand, but my mother held him back. I sat frozen, unable to move, unable to breathe as Ryan continued his brutal performance. She gave up her career, yes. Her choice. I never asked her to turn down Yale. I never demanded she work for free. She inserted herself into every aspect of my business, made herself indispensable, or so she thought. But the truth is, I succeeded despite her constant hovering, not because of it. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. Not here, not in front of everyone we knew. His brother James looked horrified. Even Margaret, who knew this was coming, seemed shocked by the public cruelty. "She clings to the past," Ryan continued, warming to his theme like he was delivering a closing argument. "Living through old photos, old memories, unable to accept that people grow, people change, people evolve beyond their college sweethearts. Look at her. 34 years old, no children, no career of her own, Nothing except being Mrs. Ryan Matthews. It's pathetic, really. Tears burned my eyes, but I wouldn't let them fall. Not yet. Around the room, people were pulling out phones, and I realized with sick horror that some were recording. This humiliation would live forever in digital form. I haven't loved Madeline for years. Ryan said, each word deliberate, measured for maximum damage. I've stayed out of pity, out of guilt, because I felt sorry for a woman who had nowhere else to go, nothing else to be. But I'm done pretending. I'm done living a lie. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a manila envelope. These are divorce papers, already filed. Madeline, you'll find them quite generous considering you contributed nothing financial to our marriage. The house is mine, purchased with my earnings. The firm is mine, built with my talent. You'll receive the state-mandated minimum, nothing more. He walked over, placed the envelope in front of me. His cologne, the one I'd bought him for Christmas, made me nauseous. But tonight isn't just about ending something that should have ended years ago, Ryan announced, returning to the microphone. It's about new beginnings, about having the courage to pursue real love when you find it. That's when Sophia stood up from her corner table. She walked toward Ryan with the confidence of someone who'd already won. He took her hand, pulled her against him, and kissed her forehead with more tenderness than he'd shown me in months. Sophia and I are in love, he announced. Real love. The kind that makes you better, stronger, more successful. She's young, yes, but she's brilliant. She has her whole future ahead of her, and I intend to be part of it. We're moving in together immediately. Madeline, you have a week to remove your belongings from my house. The room erupted. Not in congratulations, but in shocked murmurs scraping chairs. People standing up in disbelief. Someone, I think it was Ryan's law school professor, said loudly, "This is disgusting." But Ryan wasn't done. He had to twist the knife deeper. I know some of you will judge me, but I refuse to waste another day of my life pretending to love someone who bores me. Madeline is like furniture, functional but forgettable. She lacks passion, lacks ambition, lacks anything that would make a man proud to call her his wife. Sophia is everything she's not. Young, vibrant, someone who inspires me to greatness, rather than dragging me down with her mediocrity. That's when I heard my father's chair crash backward as he stood. The retired Marine colonel who'd served 3 tours in Vietnam, who'd raised me to be strong, to be dignified, to never let anyone diminish my worth. His face was purple with rage. But it wasn't my father who spoke first. It was Harold Thompson, CEO of Thompson Industries, Ryan's biggest client, responsible for 40% of the firm's revenue. He stood slowly, his voice cutting through the chaos. "Mr. Matthews," he said, quiet but commanding, "I've done business with you for 5 years. In that time, the only reason I've stayed with your firm is because of Madeline. She's the one who answers my calls at midnight. She's the one who remembers my wife's birthday, my grandchildren's names. She's the one who actually knows the law while you know how to perform it." Ryan's face paled. "Harold, this is personal, not professional. Everything is personal in business, son, and I don't do business with men who lack character. Consider our contract terminated, effective immediately. My company's $50 million portfolio will be transferred to whatever firm Madeline recommends." Before Ryan could respond, Judge Patricia Harrison stood. She was 70 years old, had been on the bench for 30 years, and everyone in Boston's legal community respected her opinion. "I've watched you argue in my courtroom, Mr. Matthews. Always thought you were a bit too rehearsed, a bit too polished. Now I know why. The woman writing your arguments just had her life torn apart for sport. Madeline dear, when you're ready to practice law again, my recommendation letter is yours." Lisa had been standing near the wall, her phone out. "I've been live streaming this for the last 10 minutes, she announced. 300,000 viewers and climbing. The comments are, "Well, Ryan, you might want to check your firm's Yelp reviews. They're tanking in real time." Sophia, who'd been pressed against Ryan's side, suddenly stepped away. Her face had gone white. "You said the announcement would be dignified. You said she already knew. This is cruel. This is insane. My career, Oh God, I work in public relations. No one will hire me after this. Now you're concerned about cruelty. My sister Jennifer stood up, her voice shaking with fury. You've been sleeping with my sister's husband for months and now you develop a conscience. It's not like that, Sophia protested. Ryan said the marriage was over. He said they lived separate lives. He said, he lied? Margaret Ryan's own mother interrupted. Just like he's lied his entire life. Madeline, I owe you an apology. I knew about the affair. I said nothing because I thought he was my son and I should support him. But this public humiliation, this is beyond forgiveness. Ryan, your father and I are ashamed of you. Ryan's father nodded, his quiet voice carrying surprising force. Madeline saved your mother's life. She gave up everything for you. And this is how you repay her, you're no son of mine. The room was in chaos. People were leaving, but not quietly. They stopped at my table, touched my shoulder, whispered support. Some pressed business cards into my hand. Others openly confronted Ryan, calling him variations of bastard monster sociopath. William Sterling, Ryan's managing partner at the firm, approached the microphone Ryan had abandoned. This is William Sterling of Sterling Matthews and Associates. Effective immediately, Ryan Matthews is under review for conduct unbecoming a partner. Madeline, the firm owes you years of back pay for your contributions. My lawyers will be in touch. Ryan finally seemed to realize his grand gesture was backfiring spectacularly. He grabbed the microphone back. You're all overreacting. This is between Madeline and me. She'll be fine. She's always fine. She's boring, but resilient. That's when I stood up. The room fell silent as I rose from my chair. Every eye turned to me, waiting. I could feel Ryan's smirk, even without looking at him, so sure he'd broken me, so certain I'd run from the room in tears like he'd planned. I walked to the microphone with the same measured pace I'd perfected in law school, back when professors called me the most promising student they'd taught in a decade. Ryan stepped aside, probably expecting me to sob, to beg to make an even bigger scene that he could use against me later. Good evening, everyone, I said, my voice steady and clear. Since Ryan has chosen to make our private life public entertainment, let me provide some context he conveniently omitted. I looked directly at him for the first time all evening. He was sweating now, his confident facade cracking. Ryan Matthews graduated law school ranked 43rd in our class. I graduated second. The only reason I wasn't first was because I spent my final semester writing Ryan's thesis so he could graduate at all. Professor Martinez, you're here tonight. You wondered why Ryan's final paper was so much better than his previous work. Now you know. The elderly professor nodded slowly, pieces falling into place. The Morrison case that launched Ryan's career. I wrote that closing argument at 3 a.m. while Ryan was passed out drunk after a strip club celebration for landing the client. The Henderson merger that made him partner. I identified the tax loophole that saved them $20 million. The constitutional challenge that got national attention. I spent 6 months researching precedents while Ryan played golf with potential clients. I pulled out my phone, connected it to the room's audio system with the Bluetooth code I'd set up earlier for the anniversary video. But let's talk about facts Ryan doesn't know. This is a recording from last Tuesday's partners meeting at Sterling Matthews and Associates. William Sterling's voice filled the room. Matthews is a liability. His work's been sloppy lately. If we didn't have Madeline cleaning up his messes, we'd have 3 malpractice suits. We need to discuss his future with the firm. Another partner's voice. His wife does all the real work. We should have made her partner instead. I stopped the recording. Ryan's face had gone from pale to green. There's more, I continued. Ryan, you mentioned the house is yours because you paid for it. Interesting. Did you forget the trust fund my grandmother left me? The $150,000 I used for the down payment, my lawyer. Not you, a real lawyer, says that makes me majority owner. You've been living in my house. Sophia made a strangled sound. Ryan grabbed her arm, but she yanked away. As for having nothing of my own, I said, pulling out a folder I'd hidden under my chair that morning, knowing somehow I'd need it. 3 months ago, I passed the patent bar exam. I've been consulting for tech startups specializing in intellectual property law. My client list includes 7 unicorn companies. My monthly billing exceeds what Ryan makes in a quarter. Gasps rippled through the room. Ryan's jaw dropped. I didn't tell you because you never asked what I did with my days. You assumed I sat at home pining for you. In reality, I was building my own practice, my own reputation, my own future, one that doesn't include you. I turned to address the room. Everyone here has witnessed Ryan's confession of adultery, his admission that he's been lying for years, his public humiliation of his wife. In Massachusetts, that's grounds for an at-fault divorce. Ryan, you won't be giving me the state minimum. You'll be giving me half of everything plus damages for emotional distress, plus reimbursement for 10 years of unpaid work at the firm. Now it was time for the killing blow. I pulled out another document. This is fascinating, though. A prenuptial agreement Ryan insisted I signed 10 years ago. He was so eager to protect his future earnings, he didn't read the reciprocal clause my lawyer added. If either party commits adultery, they forfeit all marital assets to the injured party. Ryan, you just admitted to adultery in front of 80 witnesses on livestream recorded from multiple angles. You don't just lose half, you lose everything. Ryan lunged for the microphone. That's not valid. You tricked me. I didn't trick you, I said calmly. You didn't read it. Just like you never read anything I put in front of you. You just signed trusting I'd protect you like I always did. Well, I did protect you, right up until you stopped deserving protection. I looked at Sophia, who was crying now, mascara streaming down her face. Sophia, sweetie, you're 26. You think you've won some prize. Let me tell you what you've actually won. A 41-year-old man who just publicly destroyed his wife for sport. A man who cheated on someone who gave him everything. When the excitement wears off when you're no longer young and new, he'll do the same to you. Men who betray their wives don't become faithful for their mistresses. They just become better at betrayal. She ran from the room, sobbing. Ryan called after her, but she didn't stop. So thank you, Ryan, I said, returning to the microphone for my final words. Thank you for setting me free. For the past 10 years, I've lived in your shadow, convinced I needed you to be complete. Tonight, in trying to destroy me, you've given me the greatest gift, the truth. I don't need you. I never did. I was already whole. You were just blocking my light. I picked up my champagne glass, raised it high. A toast, I said. To new beginnings, to freedom, to all the women here who've been told they're not enough. You are. You always were. Sometimes it takes a spectacular betrayal to remember your worth. I drained the glass, set it down with a decisive clink, and walked toward the exit. As I passed Ryan, I stopped, reached into my purse, and pulled out one last item. Your mother asked me to give you this, I said, handing him an envelope. It's not from Margaret. It's from your biological mother. The one you've been hiding from everyone, including Sophia. The one serving life in prison for fraud. She's so proud of how you turned out. Just like her. The room exploded. Ryan's carefully constructed history, the orphan raised by adoptive parents. The sympathy story he used to win cases crumbled in seconds. Margaret covered her face. Ryan's father walked out. His brothers followed. I left then, walking out with my head high, my parents flanking me like bodyguards. Behind me I could hear Ryan screaming furniture, crashing, people calling for security. But I didn't look back. I'd already spent too many years looking backward. The aftermath came in waves, each one revealing how thoroughly Ryan had miscalculated his public cruelty. Within an hour of leaving the hotel, my phone hadn't stopped buzzing. The live stream video had gone viral, trending on every social media platform. Someone had already created a remix of Ryan saying, "I don't love you anymore," set to circus music. Another edited version placed clown makeup on his face that appeared gradually as his speech progressed. The internet, in all its savage glory, had made Ryan Matthews the most hated man in America for exactly 15 minutes, which in internet time was equivalent to a lifetime of shame. By midnight, Lisa called from her apartment where she'd set up what she called Command Central for managing my sudden internet fame. 5 million views and climbing, she reported. The hashtag #Madeline deserves justice is trending worldwide. Someone started a GoFundMe for your new law practice that's already raised $200,000. You should see the comments on Ryan's firm's Facebook page. They've had to disable reviews everywhere. I was sitting in my childhood bedroom at my parents' house, still wearing the red dress that was supposed to celebrate 10 years of marriage. My mother had made tea, my father had poured himself scotch, and we sat in comfortable silence until I was ready to talk. I knew, I finally admitted. Some part of me knew about Sophia. Maybe not the details, but I knew something was wrong. I just thought if I could make tonight perfect, if I could remind him of what we had. You can't make someone remember what they've chosen to forget, my mother said softly. Ryan didn't forget your value, sweetheart. He just never recognized it in the first place. The next morning came too quickly. I'd barely slept when Jennifer arrived with coffee and a battle plan. As a successful marketing executive, she knew how to manage a crisis, though she'd never imagined using those skills for her sister's public divorce announcement. First things first, she said, pulling out her laptop. You need to control the narrative. I've drafted a statement for you to post on LinkedIn. Professional, dignified, focusing on your new practice. Let Ryan be the villain in this story. You're the phoenix rising from the ashes. Within 2 hours of posting, I had 300 inquiries from potential clients. Tech companies who'd seen my patent bar certification and wanted representation. Women who'd been wronged in divorces and wanted a lawyer who understood betrayal. Even a Hollywood production company interested in buying the rights to my story. But the real surprise came when Harold Thompson himself showed up at my parents' house that afternoon, accompanied by his entire legal team. Madeline, he said, his grandfatherly face serious, I meant what I said last night. Thompson Industries needs new representation. But more than that, I want to invest in your practice. I'm offering you a $5 million investment for a 49% stake in your new firm. You maintain control, but you get the capital to compete with the big boys. My hands shook as I read the contract his lawyers had prepared. It was more than fair. It was generous to the point of being philanthropic. Why, I asked. Because I built my empire on recognizing talent, he said simply. And because my daughter went through something similar 20 years ago. No one stood up for her. Last night, an entire room stood up for you. That tells me everything I need to know about your character. While I was building my future, Ryan's was crumbling spectacularly. William Sterling called me personally to inform me of the emergency partners meeting that morning. It was unanimous, he said. Ryan's been removed as name partner. The firm is now Sterling & Associates. His clients are fleeing like rats from a sinking ship. We've had to hire a PR firm to manage the disaster. Madeline, I know this is awkward, but we'd like to offer you a position. Senior partner, your name on the door, double what Ryan was making. I declined politely. I was done living in spaces Ryan had occupied. The legal proceedings moved quickly. Ryan tried to contest the prenuptial agreement, claiming he'd signed it under duress. His lawyer, one of his former fraternity brothers, seemed embarrassed to even make the argument. The judge, who'd seen the viral video like everyone else in Boston's legal community, dismissed his claim in less than 5 minutes. Mr. Matthews, she said, looking over her glasses with barely concealed disgust, you publicly admitted to adultery in front of 80 witnesses and several million online viewers. You humiliated your wife in a premeditated attack designed to cause maximum emotional damage. The prenuptial agreement stands. You have 30 days to transfer all marital assets to Mrs. Matthews. Ryan tried one last desperate move. She manipulated me. She's been planning this for years. The only manipulation I see, the judge replied, is a man who used his wife's labor loyalty and love to build his career, then discarded her like trash when someone younger came along. Mrs. Matthews, excuse me, Ms. Mitchell, since I assume you'll be reverting to your maiden name, you have the court's sympathy and full support. Sophia had disappeared completely. Someone found her. Instagram had been deleted, her LinkedIn profile removed. Ryan tried calling her hundreds of times, but she'd blocked him on everything. A mutual acquaintance later told me she'd moved back to California, was in therapy, and had sent me a long letter of apology that I chose not to read. Some bridges weren't worth rebuilding, even with apologies as timber. Ryan's family disintegration was perhaps the most dramatic subplot. Margaret called me weekly, crying, apologizing, begging for forgiveness. She'd known about the affair but never imagined Ryan would be so cruel. His adoptive father filed for divorce from Margaret, disgusted by her complicity. The brothers cut Ryan off completely, with James actually reaching out to offer me his support and a standing offer to testify about Ryan's long history of lying if I needed it for any future legal proceedings. But the revelation about Ryan's biological mother was the nuclear bomb that destroyed any chance of his recovery. Investigative journalists smelling blood in the water dug into the story. Lauren Matthews, serving life in federal prison for running a Ponzi scheme that robbed elderly people of their retirement savings. She'd abandoned Ryan when he was 3, leaving him with the family who'd worked as her housekeepers, the people he'd later claim as his adoptive parents, who saved him from foster care. The sympathy story he'd used throughout his career was built on lies within lies. The Bar Association opened an ethics investigation. Turns out, lying about your background to gain sympathy from juries was frowned upon. Who knew? 3 weeks after the anniversary dinner, I signed the lease on my new office space. Phoenix Legal Associates, LLC was born. The name was Jennifer's idea, and it was perfect. From the ashes of my marriage, something new and powerful was rising. My first hire was Kevin Chen, no relation to Sophia, a brilliant young lawyer who'd been overlooked at his previous firm because he stuttered during presentations. I didn't care about his stutter. His briefs were works of art, his research impeccable. Within a month, he'd brought in 3 major clients impressed by his thorough preparation and genuine dedication. My second hire was Barbara Stone, 63 years old, forced out of her previous firm for being too old to relate to younger clients. She had 40 years of experience and a contact list worth its weight in gold. She also had a grandmother's warmth that put nervous clients at ease and a shark's instinct for blood in the water during negotiations. We were an unlikely trio, the discarded wives and overlooked talents of the legal world, but we worked with a synchronicity born from shared understanding of being undervalued. Within 3 months, Phoenix Legal had 30 clients and a waiting list. 6 months after the anniversary dinner that changed everything, I stood in my new corner office looking out at the Boston skyline. The view was better than Ryan's old office, a fact that gave me more satisfaction than I cared to admit. The morning sun painted the city in shades of gold and possibility. My phone buzzed with a text from Daniel Kim, the venture capitalist I'd been dating for the past 2 months. Nothing serious yet. Just coffee dates and long conversations about everything except law. He was brilliant, kind, and most importantly, he saw me. Not as an extension of himself, not as a support system for his dreams, but as Madeline Mitchell, complete person with her own ambitions and value. "Dinner tonight, there's something I want to celebrate with you," his message read. I smiled, texting back a yes. He'd just closed a major deal, and unlike Ryan Daniel, celebrated his victories by sharing them, not by standing on others to appear taller. The door to my office opened, and Barbara walked in with a stack of papers and a grin that meant good news. "Sterling and Associates just settled the Johnson case," she announced. "The one Ryan botched before he was fired. They're paying out $3 million in damages because Ryan failed to file the correct paperwork on time. The malpractice insurance company is suing him personally to recover costs." I felt a twinge of something, not sympathy exactly, but a recognition of how far someone could fall when their foundation was built on lies and ego rather than substance and integrity. "Also," Barbara continued, "I ran into Margaret at the courthouse. She wanted me to give you this." She handed me a sealed envelope. I recognized Margaret's handwriting, shaky now, aged by the stress of the past months. I opened it carefully. "Dearest Madeline, I know I have no right to ask for your forgiveness. I knew about Ryan's affair and remained silent, choosing my son over the woman who saved my life. That choice haunts me every day. I want you to know that I've changed my will. Everything I have, including the family jewelry Ryan assumed would be his will, go to you. It's not much, but it includes the emerald ring my grandmother wore, the one you always admired. You were more of a daughter to me than Ryan ever was a son, and I was too blind to see it until it was too late. Ryan is living in a studio apartment in Southie, drinking too much, taking cases that no respectable lawyer would touch. Sophia left him the night of your anniversary. She's in therapy trying to understand how she got caught up in his manipulation. She was young and foolish, but she wasn't evil. Ryan destroyed her too in his way. Please don't feel obligated to respond. I just needed you to know that not everyone was blind to your worth. Some of us were just cowards who realized it too late. With love and regret, Margaret. I set the letter aside, surprised to find my eyes dry. 6 months ago, it would have broken me. Now it was just sad, a reminder of collateral damage from Ryan's narcissistic explosion. Kevin knocked and entered his stutter, barely noticeable now that he worked in an environment where he was valued for his mind, not his presentation skills. The Thompson Industries contract is ready for your signature, he said. Also, Harvard Law called. They want you to give the keynote at this year's graduation ceremony. The theme is resilience in the face of adversity. I laughed, really laughed for the first time in so long. The universe certainly had a sense of humor. That afternoon, I met my father for lunch at our favorite deli. The one Ryan had always called too lowbrow for his refined tastes. Over pastrami sandwiches and black coffee, my father finally asked the question he'd been holding back for months. Do you regret it, the years with Ryan? I considered the question, really considered it. No, I said finally. I regret how it ended. I regret not seeing my worth sooner. But those years taught me something valuable. They taught me the difference between being needed and being valued. Ryan needed me to function, but he never valued me as a person. Now I know the difference. My father reached across the table and squeezed my hand. You know what makes me proud? It's not that you survived what he did. It's that you didn't let it make you bitter. You could have destroyed him completely, leaked those recordings of the partners meeting earlier, exposed his biological mother's story yourself. But you didn't. You let him destroy himself while you built something better. He was right. I had hours of recordings, emails, documents that could have buried Ryan so deep he'd never practice law again. But revenge wasn't healing. Building something new was healing. Helping other women navigate their own betrayals was healing. Success was healing. That evening, as I prepared for dinner with Daniel, I got an unexpected call from an unknown number. Usually I didn't answer these, but something made me pick up. Madeline, it's Sophia. My chest tightened, but I kept my voice neutral. Hello, Sophia. I know I have no right to call. I wanted you to know that I testified in the Bar Association hearing against Ryan. I told them everything. How he pursued me, how he said you were basically separated, how he promised to make me a partner in the firm if I played along with his plan to humiliate you publicly. Why? I asked, genuinely curious. Because what he did was evil, and because I was complicit in that evil. I can't undo what I did, but I could at least make sure he faces consequences. He played us both, Madeline. You were his victim, but I was too in a different way. I'm in therapy now, trying to understand how I let myself become someone who would participate in destroying another woman. I appreciate you telling me, I said and meant it. What will you do now? I'm in law school again, actually, starting over. This time, I'm going to specialize in women's rights and workplace harassment. Funny how personal experience can redirect your entire career path. After we hung up, I sat in my apartment looking at the Boston skyline as it transformed from day to night. The city lights twinkled like promises, each one a possibility, a future I could never have imagined when I was Mrs. Ryan Matthews. My laptop chimed with an email from the publisher who'd bought the rights to my story. The book would be called Phoenix Rising, a memoir of marriage, betrayal, and rebirth. The advance was enough to ensure Phoenix Legal could offer pro bono services to women who couldn't afford representation in their own divorces. As I dressed for dinner, I caught my reflection in the mirror. 35 years old, successful, independent, surrounded by people who valued me for exactly who I was. The woman in the mirror looked nothing like the one who'd stood frozen 6 months ago while her husband destroyed her in front of everyone she knew. This woman looked powerful, whole, free. My phone rang again. Daniel calling from his car. "Slight change of plans," he said, excitement in his voice. "Instead of dinner, how do you feel about a helicopter ride? I want to show you something." An hour later, we were flying over Boston at sunset. The city spread below us like a jewel box. Daniel pointed toward the financial district. "See that building, the one with the green roof?" I nodded, recognizing it as one of the premier office buildings in the city. "My company just bought it. We're looking for a flagship tenant for the top 3 floors. Interested in expanding Phoenix legal." "Daniel, that's too much." "It's not a gift," he interrupted gently. "It's a business proposition. Your firm is the fastest growing in Boston. You need space to expand. I need a tenant that brings prestige to the building. It's a win-win." This was the difference I realized. Daniel offered opportunities, not rescue, partnership, not dependence. "I'll have Barbara review the terms," I said, and he laughed. "I'd expect nothing less." As we flew over the city, I could see the Peninsula Hotel where my life had shattered and reformed. From this height, it looked so small, just one building among thousands, one moment among millions. The anniversary dinner felt like a lifetime ago, though it had only been 6 months. "Can I ask you something?" Daniel said. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if Ryan hadn't done what he did, if he'd just asked for a divorce quietly?" "Every day," I admitted. "And every day, I'm grateful he didn't. A quiet divorce would have left me doubting myself, wondering what I did wrong, possibly trying to win him back." His cruelty was a gift. It showed me exactly who he was, and more importantly, who I was without him. We flew in comfortable silence for a while, watching the sun paint the Atlantic in shades of copper and rose. Below us, the city continued its endless motion, millions of lives intersecting, separating, moving forward. "There's something else," Daniel said. "My ex-wife called yesterday. She saw the video of your anniversary dinner. She wanted to thank you." "Thank me, why?" "She went through something similar. Her husband publicly humiliated her at a charity gala, announced he was leaving her for his secretary. She said watching you stand up, take that microphone, and systematically dismantle Ryan's narrative gave her closure she didn't know she needed." "You didn't just stand up for yourself that night, Madeline. You stood up for every woman who's ever been publicly discarded by someone who promised to love them forever." The weight of that hit me unexpectedly. I'd received hundreds of emails from women sharing their own stories, thanking me for showing them that public humiliation didn't have to be the end of their story. It could be the beginning of something better. As we descended back toward the city, my phone lit up with messages. The Bar Association had made their ruling. Ryan's law license was suspended for 2 years with requirements for ethics courses and supervised practice before reinstatement. It was more severe than anyone had expected, but then again, Ryan's spectacular fall from grace had been more dramatic than anyone could have imagined. The last message was from William Sterling. "Thought you should know. Ryan came by the office today begging for his job back. Security had to escort him out when he wouldn't leave. The mighty have truly fallen. Your success, meanwhile, continues to inspire. Congratulations on the Patterson Industries contract. You beat us fair and square." 1 year. That's how long it had been since Ryan Matthews stood in front of 80 people and declared me worthless, boring, forgettable. 1 year since my marriage ended in the most spectacular public humiliation imaginable. 1 year since the worst night of my life became the catalyst for the best year I'd ever lived. I stood in the conference room of Phoenix Legal Associates, now occupying 3 floors of prime Boston real estate, watching my team of 12 attorneys prepare for our latest case. We were representing a class action lawsuit against a Fortune 500 company for systematic discrimination against women in promotions. It was the kind of case Ryan would have defended, helping the corporation crush the little people. Instead, I was giving those women a voice, and we were winning. "The depositions are scheduled for next week. Barbara reported now, my chief operating officer. Their lead attorney tried to intimidate me with threats of burying us in paperwork. I reminded him that our team includes 3 former big law attorneys who know exactly how that game is played. He backed down immediately. Kevin, now a full partner despite being only 28, added his analysis without a trace of his former stutter. Their settlement offer just jumped to $40 million. They know they're going to lose at trial. We go to trial anyway, I decided. This isn't just about money. It's about setting precedent. My team nodded in agreement. We'd turned down bigger settlements before when principle mattered more than profit. That was the Phoenix legal way, and it's why we had a waiting list of clients who wanted representation from lawyers who understood that some fights were about more than billable hours. My assistant knocked and entered. Ms. Mitchell. There's someone here to see you. He doesn't have an appointment, but he says it's urgent. His name is Ryan Matthews. The room went silent. Everyone looked at me, waiting for my reaction. I hadn't seen Ryan since the divorce proceedings a year ago. He'd aged a decade in 12 months, according to mutual acquaintances. The suspension of his law license had been followed by a drinking problem, a gambling addiction, and a series of increasingly desperate attempts to maintain his lifestyle without income. Send him in, I said calmly. Everyone else, please give us the room. My team filed out, Barbara squeezing my shoulder in support as she passed. A moment later, Ryan walked in, and I had to work to keep my expression neutral. He looked terrible. His suit, once impeccably tailored, hung loose on his frame. His hair, which he'd always kept perfectly styled, was unkempt with gray streaking through it. His hands shook slightly, and I could smell alcohol despite it being only 2 in the afternoon. Hello, Ryan. Madeline. He couldn't meet my eyes. Thank you for seeing me. What do you need? He laughed bitterly. What don't I need? My career is over. My reputation is destroyed. I'm facing bankruptcy. My family won't speak to me. Sophia is suing me for emotional manipulation and fraud, says I promised her things I couldn't deliver. Even my mother, my biological mother in prison, she won't accept my calls anymore. Says I remind her too much of herself. I waited, saying nothing. I'd learned in the past year that silence was often more powerful than words. I came to apologize. He finally said the words, seeming to physically pain him. What I did to you was unforgivable. I see that now. I destroyed the one person who actually loved me, who actually supported me, because my ego couldn't handle the truth that you were always the better lawyer, the better person. Is that all? I asked, keeping my voice neutral. No. He pulled out an envelope. This is a letter I've written to the Bar Association, taking full responsibility for everything. Admitting that you did the majority of the work at our firm, that I built my career on your talent. It won't get my license back, but it might help with your reputation, not that you need it. I took the letter but didn't open it. Why now, Ryan? Why not 6 months ago when it might have mattered? Because 6 months ago, I still thought I could win. I thought I could rebuild, get Sophia back, convince everyone that you were the villain in our story. It took losing everything to realize that I was always the villain. I was the villain the day I let you give up Yale for me. I was the villain every time I took credit for your work. I was the villain when I fell in love with the idea of Sophia. Not because she was special, but because she was young and looked at me the way you used to before I killed that light in your eyes. For the first time since he'd walked in, I felt something other than indifference. Not sympathy exactly, but a recognition of human frailty. I accept your apology, I said, but I don't forgive you. Forgiveness would suggest that what you did is forgivable, and it's not. You didn't just hurt me, Ryan. You tried to destroy me in front of everyone I knew, everyone I respected. You tried to take not just my marriage, but my dignity, my self-worth, my future. I know, he whispered. I know what I did. No, I don't think you do. But that's not my problem anymore. I stood, signaling the meeting was over. I wish you well, Ryan. I hope you find help for your drinking. I hope you rebuild some kind of life. But that life can't include me, not even as a footnote. He stood too, looking older than his 42 years. Can I ask you one thing? Are you happy? Really happy? Yes, I said without hesitation. I'm happier than I ever was with you. I wake up every morning excited about my work, my life, my future. I'm in love with someone who sees me as an equal partner. I have a career that matters, friends who value me, and most importantly, I have myself. Completely authentically, unapologetically, myself. Ryan nodded, turned to leave, then stopped at the door. That night, the anniversary dinner, I thought I was destroying you. But you're right. I only destroyed myself. You were never breakable, Madeline. I just spent 10 years trying to convince you that you were. After he left, I stood at my window looking out at the city I now owned a piece of. My phone buzzed with a text from Daniel, a photo from his business trip to Tokyo with the message, "Missing you. Can't wait to celebrate your birthday next week. I have a surprise planned." My 36th birthday. A year older, a lifetime wiser. Barbara knocked and re-entered. "Everything okay?" "Everything's perfect," I said and meant it. "Good, because we have a situation. Remember that young associate from Sterling who reached out last week? The one whose boss has been taking credit for her work?" "Sarah Chen?" I asked, remembering the eager young woman who'd reminded me of myself 15 years ago. "That's her. She just quit Sterling via email, ceasing the entire firm, calling out the systemic sexism and credit stealing. She wants to know if we're hiring." I laughed, really laughed, the kind that came from genuine joy rather than bitter irony. "Set up an interview. Anyone brave enough to burn that bridge deserves a chance to build something better." That evening, I attended a charity gala for women's legal aid, the same charity I'd volunteered with during law school, before Ryan convinced me my time was better spent supporting his career. I was being honored for my pro bono work, something that would have been impossible when I was invisible in Ryan's shadow. As I gave my acceptance speech, I looked out at the audience filled with powerful women, rising stars, and established leaders who'd welcomed me into their ranks not because I was someone's wife, but because I'd earned my place. "A year ago, someone tried to convince me I was nothing without them," I said into the microphone. "They stood in front of everyone I knew and listed all the ways I was lacking, boring, forgettable. For a moment, one terrible moment, I believed them. The room was silent, everyone knowing the story, the video having become something of a legend in Boston legal circles. But here's what I learned. When someone tries to dim your light, it's not because you're not bright enough. It's because you're so bright they need sunglasses, and they're too proud to admit they can't handle your shine. So they try to convince you to turn yourself down, make yourself smaller, dimmer, less than what you are." Nods around the room, women who'd lived their own versions of this story. Don't believe them. Don't dim your light. Don't make yourself smaller. Take up space. Be brilliant. Be boring, if that means being dedicated and hardworking. Be forgettable if that means not creating drama. Be everything they say you are, and then be so much more. Because the only opinion about your worth that matters is your own. The applause was thunderous. Women approached me afterward, sharing their stories, thanking me for being visible in my recovery, for showing that public humiliation didn't have to be the end. Later, as I stood on my apartment balcony with a glass of wine, my phone rang. It was Jennifer, my sister. "You'll never believe what I just heard," she said, barely containing her laughter. "Ryan applied to be a paralegal at a small firm in Worcester, a paralegal. They turned him down because he was overqualified and they thought he'd be too difficult to manage." I didn't laugh. There was nothing funny about watching someone hit rock bottom, even someone who'd hurt me as badly as Ryan had. "I hope he finds something," I said. "Everyone deserves a second chance." "You're a better person than me," Jennifer said. "After what he did to you." "What he did to me was set me free," I corrected. "I spent 10 years in a cage I didn't even know existed. Ryan opening that door, even if he meant it as cruelty, was the best thing that ever happened to me." It was true. Every word of it. The woman who'd stood frozen in that hotel banquet room, absorbing Ryan's cruel words like physical blows, she was gone. In her place stood someone stronger, someone who knew her worth wasn't determined by anyone else's opinion, someone who'd taken the worst moment of her life and transformed it into the foundation for something beautiful. Looking back, I realized the signs had always been there. Ryan's need to diminish me to feel bigger. His resentment of my intelligence disguised as jokes about me being too serious. His insistence that I work for free while he collected the paychecks. His refusal to have children because they would distract from his career. Every red flag I'd explained away, rationalized, ignored in the name of love. But it wasn't love. Love doesn't require one person to shrink so the other can grow. Love doesn't demand sacrifice without reciprocation. Love doesn't humiliate, diminish, or destroy. What Ryan and I had was a transaction where I paid everything and received nothing but the privilege of calling myself his wife. My phone buzzed with one final message of the day. A photo from Sophia Chen. Now Chen, once again at her law school graduation in California. She was smiling, holding her diploma with a caption, "Thank you for showing me that starting over is possible. Congratulations on your latest victory. You deserve every success." I didn't respond, but I did smile. We'd all survived Ryan Matthews in our own ways. We'd all risen from the ashes of his destruction. As I prepared for bed, I pulled out the journal I'd started keeping after the divorce. On tonight's page, I wrote, "1 year later. I thought this anniversary would be hard, a reminder of humiliation and pain. Instead, it's a celebration, not of surviving Ryan's cruelty, but of discovering that I was always enough. I was always valuable. I was always whole. I just needed the right catalyst to remember it. So thank you, Ryan, for trying to destroy me. In your failure, I found my success. In your cruelty, I found my strength. In your betrayal, I found my freedom. And in losing you, I found myself." The end. But of course it wasn't really the end. It was the beginning. Every day since that horrible night had been a new beginning, a chance to build something better, be someone stronger, live a life authentic to who I really was, rather than who someone else needed me to be. Phoenix Legal continued to grow. We won the class action lawsuit setting precedent that protected women in workplaces across the country. I published my memoir with all proceeds, going to women's shelters. Daniel and I got engaged in a quiet ceremony with just family, no spectacle, no performance, just genuine love and commitment between equals. And Ryan. Last I heard, he was working as a document reviewer in a basement office, the kind of job law school graduates take when they have no other options. His fall from grace was complete, but more importantly, it was irrelevant to my story. He'd been the villain in one chapter, but I was the author of all the rest. Sometimes when young women came to my office devastated by their own betrayals, their own public humiliations, their own Ryan Matthews, I would tell them this. Right now it feels like the end of the world, but it's not. It's the end of a world that was too small for you anyway. The person who hurt you thought they were destroying you, but they were actually setting you free. They thought they were exposing your weaknesses, but they were actually revealing your strength. So cry tonight, rage tomorrow, then get up, dust yourself off, and build something so beautiful, so powerful, so authentically yours, that their opinion becomes nothing more than a footnote in your success story. That's what I did. That's what every woman who's ever been told she's not enough can do. We rise, we rebuild, we reclaim our narrative, and we never ever let anyone else hold the pen again. Looking back now, if I could tell that woman in the red dress one thing as she stood frozen while her husband destroyed her in front of everyone, it would be this: "This is not your destruction, darling. This is your origin story. This is the night Madeline Matthews dies and Madeline Mitchell is born, and she's going to be magnificent." What's your story? Have you ever had someone try to tear you down publicly only to have it backfire on them? How did you rise from your lowest moment? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. And if this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe for more stories of triumph over betrayal. Share this with someone who needs to remember their worth today. Thank you for listening to my journey. Remember, you are enough. You have always been enough, and anyone who says otherwise is telling you about their limitations, not yours.